Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. My name is Bree, and I am joined by my girl gang here. That I'm just so happy you ladies have joined me. So first, I have my friend Nadia is here. Nadia, say hello, please.
Hello.
And then Angela is here,
Hello.
and then my girl Dory is here. Hello, Dory.
Hello.
And you three joined me for this month's books club. So if you're new to the podcast, every month we pick a books club. We don't read the same book. We just come up with an idea. Everybody picks their own book that they want to read that fits into that idea. And then we come together and talk about it. And for this month, we focused on Harlequin's Kimani line. So, Angela, you have read Kimani before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dory, was this your first Kimani or no?
This was my first.
Okay, that's always exciting. And Nadia, was this your first?
This was my first, yes.
Oh my God. Okay, this is going to be so fun. So, some of my notes before I get into the questions, because I have a lot I want to talk to y'all about. So, I always like to do some background. So, Harlequin purchased Arabesque. It's called Sepia, I believe. Is that how you say it? Sepia? Is it Sepia or
Yeah,
Sepia?
I think it's sepia.
Okay. Sepia and New Spirit. They purchased those from BET back in 2005. And this purchase resulted in Harlequin's Kimani Press imprint. So this imprint featured romance novels that were primarily written by and centered around African American protagonists. So then in 2006, they launched the imprint. So there was Kimani Arabesque. These novels centered around passion, adventure, intrigue. Kimani True, which I've actually heard a lot about. I've never personally seen one in person. I'd love to get my hands on copies. But these are actually targeted to Black teenagers. And I'm like, if these would have just been a couple of years earlier, I would have probably devoured these because I don't really feel like I read any books geared towards teens when I was an actual teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Kimani Romance, which was the largest out of the three books lines in the imprint. Kimani Romance featured African American and multicultural heroes and heroines. They released 4 titles every month. And so when it released, it was kind of a divisive decision. And this kind of leads into one of my first questions I want to ask you all. So it was a divisive decision to create a line dedicated to Black romance. Most of the romance novels are in the world of category are divided into lines by genre. So if you want romantic suspense, there's romantic suspense, right? If you want medical, there's medical. If you want historical, there's Harlequin historical. For Kimani, the only common feature that really linked all the books together was the Black female protagonist. Some readers and authors viewed this as a positive change, while some people took issue with the books being separated. So when we think of it in terms of that, what are our thoughts as like for Black women? What side of the fence do you feel like you lean towards most? Like I personally, I think I get both sides. Like on one hand, I'm like, why do we have to be separated? But also like having a line that celebrates our romance feels kind of special. So what do y'all think? Nadia, go first since this was your first.
I think that there's something to be said when you have books that are sort of tailor-made for you. Because if you look just at romance as a whole, we don't really see females of color at the helm of the story. And so it's something great and beautiful that Kimani had created this line, so to speak, of specific stories that were made for us, by us, and the covers are beautiful. It's just like, it's literal like visual overload. Like I was looking at so many of the covers just thinking, oh my gosh, what do I pick up first? So I think it's something to be said that it's specifically tailored and catered for us.
Yeah. What did you think, Dory?
I see both sides as well. I like that there is a line where what you're getting, and you know that if you're a Black woman, you're going to see yourself represented. I love that. It makes the barrier to entry, I think, to romance into category a lot lower. If you want to recommend books to someone or things like that, I think that it's great. My concern is always, I would hope that with a line like this existing, that it wasn't used as an excuse to not diversify the other lines as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we have Kimani, so all of the Black protagonists are going to go there. We're not going to diversify, like you mentioned, romantic suspense or medical or historical. And I think that's where things can get a little bit dicey, because those lines should be diversified as well. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of times when you have a specific line, it's kind of like, well, that's where our Black stories go and that's it. And I think that can be, I don't necessarily like that. I think it can be really problematic and concerning.
Yeah, because when they closed this line, they also closed Super Romance, they closed Nocturne, and a couple of others. I'm blanking on the other ones that they closed. I'll try to make sure that I leave them in the show notes. I want to say American Romance, but that may have closed a long time before this. But anyway, like I think of like Nocturne, for example, which was their paranormal line. I had no idea there were Black authors that wrote for that line. I know for sure of one, and I just stumbled upon her probably like 4 months ago. So it does feel like, I am new to this line as well. Like I discovered it really during COVID, and I was just buying them up off of eBay. But so from someone that has like, that's kind of new to it still, it does look like if you were a Black author writing two Black characters, you were going to be in this line. Like your books weren't necessarily going to be considered for presents or considered for romance. So it's interesting. I really agree with that, Dory. Angela, what do you think?
I have read Kamani forever. So of course, I was around when it closed, it was kind of heartbreaking because it was like, man, these are amazing stories by our amazing authors. And to be able to see that, because I have been a avid reader forever. I mean, since like elementary school days or what have you. So to be able to see a line that shared our stories was just amazing to have. But I do like the fact that the stories were able to be told from our perspective, and that it was a platform for these authors, because a lot of times, sometimes when you think about romance or what have you, some authors or some readers didn't even know about these individuals. So to find the Kamani line, it created that opportunity, and it did open doors for some of these amazing authors. I know a lot of them, I discovered them through the Kamani line. And of course, when they went on to write for other lines or, other publishing companies and stuff like that, I followed them because I was familiar with their work and familiar with their writing style and things of that nature too. But I'm always wanting to make sure that that diversity is there. So that was, I think someone had kind of said it earlier, that is something that kind of, you kind of think about to say, okay, are they putting all of the African American authors that have these characters or what have you in this particular line? But I was glad to see that when it closed, that some of them were able to go into other lines.
So I mentioned to you all, like, I found this blog post by author Cherish Hodges, and it's brilliant. So she starts it off with, it came in an email, which I have heard from a couple of the prior Kamani authors that that's how they were notified that the line was closing. And she shows two old Harlequin Desire covers. Like, this is, I guess, the attempt at diversity that pretty much failed. So she showed two titles by Sarah Anderson, his illegitimate heir, which is an interracial couple on the cover, And it says that Sarah Anderson is not an author of color. For a long time, all Black characters could only be in Kimani books. And then this happened. And this is like the cover is a Black man with a white pregnant female. And then her next book is a white man holding a little cute Black baby that's asleep on his chest. And she says, in this story, the Black woman heroine doesn't think she's good enough for the white hero. And there is the Black baby they find in the trash can. Okay, that is cultural diversity at its best. Very sarcastic.
Wow.
So she's like, so why are you mad? She's like, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain. I love this point. So mainstream reviewers acted as if two Black people falling in love, have money, and sex was something they could not relate to. But damn it, a fucking vampire falling in love with a blonde virgin who could read minds was the most romantic thing in the universe. Newsflash. Vampires are not real. Black people exist. I love that.
Right.
How do you think these little Black people got here? Their mothers and fathers fell in love and had sex. It happens every day. Her second point was bookstores put Black romance in a separate section. Like, that was cool. Totally see that. I remember before moving here, I lived in Georgia, and we had a Books a Million, and there was an actual like African American section, and that's where they just put everything. I wasn't reading romance at the time, so it's like kind of fine to me because the books that I was looking for were over there. But I was like, I wonder if I was to go to one of those bookstores now, would I find Beverly Jenkins and Brenda Jackson there, or would they actually be in their romance section where their books should be, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then number 3 is one that I wholeheartedly believe in across the board. And I feel like as a category reader, I feel like some of my favorite lines have been victim to this. Many publishers don't try to market ethnic romance at all. And a lot of what I have like read during like reading blog posts and articles is that a lot of the authors just did not feel like they were marketing these books. So like, Angela, as someone who was reading the books, do you remember how you knew something new was coming out? Was it from following the authors? Were you able to go into the bookstore and just find them?
It was mainly for following the authors, knowing when they had books coming out. Some of them I received like ARC copies from them directly. Attending book events, I found out about them as well. Of course, when I first started reading it, social media wasn't as what it is now, or what have you. But yeah, it was more of following the authors, knowing those authors, and then those authors also having a community and introducing you to other authors who also wrote for the line. It's kind of how I found out about the whole Kimani line. Now, Walmart at the time, when Kimani did exist, certain Walmarts, I can say the ones in my area, they often had, where they have like all the Harlequin books or what have you, they would have like the latest release of the Kimani books at my particular Walmart. But I can't say that for, Walmarts all over the world. But in my city, in my area, the Walmarts that I went to, they did have the Kimani line there.
Yeah. So what are y'all's thoughts? Okay, Dory, I'm going to start with you. For obviously, as Black women, we're like, you see these and you get excited, right? But like, what do you think it is for non-Black readers? Like, what is it about our romance that you'd be easy? It's easier to like, oh, this is a vampire shifter romance, I'm going to pick this up. But this Black romance isn't. I'm not going to be able to relate to that. What do you think it is?
Girl, I wish I knew. I really I really wish I knew. I think that I'm glad you shared that blog post because it kind of highlights some of like it was nice to hear an author's perspective on that situation. It was from an author, right? An
Yes.
author wrote the blog. Yeah. It was nice to get their perspective because I think you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. And it's fascinating to hear, years later, like, oh my goodness, like these books weren't getting the attention they deserved. Because I was looking through and there are so many great stories. And I feel like part of the problem is people not knowing that they exist. And so if you are a Black woman and you want these Black romance stories, you've got your ear out, like you're looking for those types of stories. But if you're not, maybe it's not on your radar. And then if the books also aren't being marketed appropriately, then maybe you don't even know about them. So I think part of it is visibility, and part of it, and I think that from that blog post, we see that the attention paid to publicity and marketing was not the same as maybe other lines. And so people might not have even known about these books, and then, but I really wish I knew. Like, I really don't. It's frustrating to me, that when people don't read or watch TV, movies, whatever, diversely, it frustrates me. And I wish that I knew like the secret code to get people to try new things. Maybe it doesn't reflect their life, but they still can find stories that they love. I mean, we've been doing it forever,
Yeah.
So it's definitely kind of a sticking point for me, and it frustrates me, and I wish I had the answer. I really do.
What do you think, Nadia?
I agree. I think that it's, we don't live in a just black and white world. We live in a world where we have all types of people, all types of ethnicities and shades of color and everything. So why wouldn't we want to see that depicted in a book or a television show or a movie that we're watching? I think that it's sort of, if I could say, quite ignorant to not consider that there are other cultures that want to be seen on the page. As an author, when you're sitting down writing your book, what kind of world are you seeing? Are you only seeing a world of white, or are you seeing a world of different of diversity? Because when you walk outside your front door, you see all types of people, right? So why wouldn't you want to see that in a book? I remember reading an article that Naima Simone had written, and she said she had to actually change one of her book covers because in one of her, I think it was a football series, and on the cover, on the first cover, she had a Black football character. And that did not do well. Her publishers were kind of just like, yeah, that's not going to sell. And so she literally had to change the cover because she was being told that won't sell. But she was saying, but my characters are Black. They said that doesn't matter. What you see on the cover, people are going to judge what they see on the cover, and they don't want to see a Black male on the cover. That hurts. It hurts because you think, okay, but that's someone's husband, that's someone's brother, that's someone's father. Like, don't you want to see that? Don't you want to see that? So it is, I echo, it is very frustrating. And if you don't know that it's out there and you're looking for it, then why not let that be known? Hey, this is what's available if this specifically is what you're looking for.
Right. I hate that, like, that's not gonna sell.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna be able to buy what you don't put out. So
Correct.
that's always interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Angela?
For me, and the first thing that comes to mind when Dory and Nadia was speaking is wow. I mean, three letters, wow. It's sad. It's disheartening to know that we have um, African American authors or diverse authors or BIPOC authors who have such amazing stories, but sometimes on the marketing side of it, you have people that still make comments like that, like they can't relate to that or they can't see that, and I feel like it's as an African American influencer and book reader and book lover or what have you, I feel like we have to work extra hard to make sure that those stories are out there, that the diverse stories are getting the attention that they need. I am an eclectic reader, and I read, I read diverse authors and stuff. I read, Caucasian authors and stuff like that. But one thing that I have found is that, and you guys may can relate to this, is that a lot of times it's not the BIPOC authors that are not trying, because a lot of times we read their stuff. We, if that makes sense, like we'll read their stuff, but then when the tables are turned, it's like they're like, oh, well, I can't relate to theirs. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I wish that eventually we will get to a place where everybody feels that there is room at the table, no matter what your race is or what have you, that a good story is a good story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but just thinking about what Nadia said and Dory said, yeah, the word wow just still comes to mind, that in 2023, we are still fighting that battle to be heard and to be seen. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things from author Cherish Hodges's blog post, again, she said romance is romance. She said, why I didn't read romance for years? Because I got tired of stretching my imagination to turn white folks into black folks. If I
Ooh.
had to do all of that to enjoy a story, then I might as well write my own. So I did. And at the time
Mm.
of this blog post, I think she'd written 3 Kimani romances. So when do you all, like, looking back on your reading experience, do you remember the first time you read a book and realized you saw yourself, or the first time you read a book and you're like, I haven't seen myself? Like, either or, like, whatever comes to mind. Nadia, let's start with you.
Um, Gosh, I think I read so many non-BIPOC authors for years because I didn't see any available other than um, maybe like the adult like Beverly Jenkins books, or that my mom was just like, yeah, you're too young to read those.
Yeah.
um, so I didn't really see myself on the page until I was an adult.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's sad to say, I'm 36 years old, and that's literally maybe 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And so I didn't really see myself. So once again, I would have to imagine, hey, this character looks like me, or hey, this character looks like my siblings, or I would have to imagine it because I didn't see it. And then once I
Yeah.
did see it, it was because of Bookstagram and social media where I would come across these indie authors and that I didn't even know existed until social media, because I didn't see it. I didn't see them on the Target bookshelf or the Walmart bookshelf or the Barnes and Noble bookshelf, and I literally had to look everything up online because they were not readily available in retail. And it was both exciting and yet sad that I'm just like, okay, I'm in my 20s and I'm just now discovering all of these amazing BIPOC authors and these characters of color that look like me and look like my family. It was a weird experience, really weird experience.
Yeah, I'm one of those readers that when I read, I am the main character, right?
Hmm.
And so the first time it hit me was when I started really, well, yeah, when I started really reading romance, because I did go through a big phase of, I read a lot of urban fiction. Like
Hmm.
by this time, like I think it kind of depends on where you grow up to. Like I, as a kid, lived in small town Missouri, Midwest United States.
Hmm.
I wasn't seeing, we had one bookstore and I don't remember any black books, right?
Right,
But
right.
then I moved to Memphis in high school and like there's like an entire like urban fiction bookstore in the mall. And I remember feeling like I was friends with the main character then, but then as I got older and when I started reading romance, I was like, "Oh, I am the main character." And it
Mhm.
was when I read Alyssa Cole's An Extraordinary Union, that was the first time that it hit me that I was like, "I can actually really be her. Like I can just be myself and be this main character versus like reading a Daphne du Maurier or reading a Debbie Maycomber and it's very much a white heroine and I'm just like really having to like change up so much to make it feel like it's me. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
I agree. I remember I came across this book called Midnight by Sister Soldier, I think.
Mhm.
And I was like maybe 23, 24, and it was an urban fiction book. And I remember reading it and I enjoyed it, but I thought, this isn't the environment that I grew up in. I know nothing of this world. but I
Mhm.
love to see people who look like me on the pages,
Yeah.
but it's not exactly what I'm used to. So I had to adjust my thinking and my sort of my mindset to, oh, is this the only thing that's available? Is this how people really see us? Is this how authors really see us?
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Dory?
I feel really lucky because I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Cleveland area, and I went to a really diverse high school. And two of my four English teachers in those high school years were Black.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was amazing. And so they assigned us, reading plenty of Black fiction. We read Maya Angelou and um Toni Morrison, and I think that that really shaped my reading, right? Like I kind of had it ingrained in me to look for Black authors, to look for authors of color, and I've always been an avid reader, and so I've loved reading about experiences that were different from my own, and seeing the world through different perspectives. So I think I was really, really lucky in that way. I started reading romance when I was an adult, so like late 20s, early 30s. And I remember first getting into romance and thinking, like, oh, I really like this. I want to read more. And so I would look at, I would research best romance lists on different websites and stuff, different blogs. And I vividly remember looking at those best of romance lists and not seeing like any Black authors ever, and I was always like, that seems suspicious. And so I realized that, like, as a romance reader, and this was years ago, I think things have changed quite a bit, but I think when I started, like, I really had to actively seek out authors of color, and like they weren't being highlighted as featured authors often. And so that's always how I've read romance. I've always kind of gone out of my way to find authors of color and read diversely. And I think that not everyone does that, and not everyone should have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't have to be digging to read diverse stories. They should
Yeah.
be available and marketed and featured and present. And but when I started, I vividly remember feeling like I had to dig a little bit. Like, Kimani was around when I first started reading, and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was reading the books now, and I'm like, I would have loved to read these when I first started reading romance. I would have loved to have these stories. And I remember that I would even go into the library and, get a lot of physical books. And I don't remember seeing Kimani in the featured, little romance section at my library. None of that. So, I think that you, a lot of times, especially previously, you really had to kind of make a concerted effort to find the stories where you saw yourself represented.
What about you, Angela?
Yes, I definitely agree that you had to and still have to sometimes make the effort to actually search out these books with characters that look like you. I have, as I stated earlier, I've been reading a long time, so I remember when I was younger, a lot of the characters that I was reading about, they didn't look like me, or what have you. And I remember in I want to say it was in middle school, I think, when we read Sounder, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember in high school when we read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. And then I want to say I was in middle school when I picked up Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. So those are some books where, the characters like looked like you. But as far as like romance, I was more in my adult years when I found a romance novels of characters that look like me. And I definitely will have to say and give props to author Jacquelin Thomas. When I met her in person, and she is amazing, by the way. When I met her in person, I know she opened my eyes to a lot of African American authors. A lot of these authors were a part of the Kimani line as well, and I was like, wow, there are a lot of amazing stories out there that I can now, read in addition to other stuff that I like to read as well, because I'm a pretty eclectic reader. So yeah, it was more in my adult years when I discovered that there were romance books that were being written by BIPOC authors and with characters that looked like me.
Well, I think that the world of like Kindle and Kindle Unlimited has just been such a game changer. I think there's so many amazing Black authors in that space writing Black romance and celebrating Black romance, and it's beautiful to see. I just like I'm still very much like I go to the bookstore, right? I love to just go into Barnes and Noble, and I'm like I want to see more of them here, but I also love that they're able to do their own thing. They're able to write the books and tell the stories how they want to tell them and how often they want to tell them. So, while it sucks that the line is gone, and I think the part of like the line being gone that sucks the most as a reader is just you don't see a lot of the authors. So from duke.edu, their site, they did a post about it, and they said, although Harlequin indicated that it would welcome Kimani authors to submit their work to the other lines, some evidence shows that the racial diversity of authors writing Harlequin romance novels took a steep drop after Kimani was discontinued. So just
Ugh.
rattling off the top of my head that I can think of. So like Angela, you mentioned Jacquelin Thomas. So we do have Miss Jackie. She writes for Heartwarming and Love Inspired Suspense. We have Reese Ryan, who's, been writing for Desire, but Desire's closing. We had Nadine Gonzalez. Nadine Gonzalez wrote for Kimani and Desire, which again is closing. Deborah Fletcher Mello wrote for, like, we do have some, but there's still so many that I'm like, where did this person go? Where did this person go? It just kind
I
of seems like
know.
when the line ended, they stopped, and they just kind of moved on. And it's like, there's so many of them that I would have loved to see writing in presents, writing romantic suspense, or, love inspired, heartwarming. Like, it's been interesting to kind of keep up with them online and see like some of them just are doing nothing. A lot of them are doing indie, which is great. But yeah, it's like, where did they go? If you were going to offer it to them, where are they, kind of thing. So
it's almost like if we did not have social media the way that it is, like
yeah,
these authors and its readers would really be even more disconnected. Like we would not know, where would we look? Because if we
Right.
were waiting on to a local library to keep it in stock, or books, local bookstores to keep it in stock, then we would be up a creek. There is an independent bookstore that opened up in Pasadena this year called Octavia's Bookshelf. And so it's all diverse books that I had never read before. Some of these authors I'd never even heard of before, and I'm getting to read them for the first time as an adult. And I'm just thinking, if I had this sort of store available as a teen, I would have been introduced to so many different writers. So many different writers.
One thing that I kept coming across was that when you kind of separate it and make it its own thing, there's the idea that it's like a niche. Is that how you say niche? Is it niche or niche? It's niche, right?
Niche.
Yeah.
Niche.
So when you like separate it and make it its own thing, it becomes like a niche, right? Like paranormal, Black romance. And it's like Black romance isn't, I don't feel like it's a niche. It's romance. This is just what the characters just so happen to look like. So I did see some conversations of like, the people that are like, they should have been in all the other lines to begin with. But like, how often did they submit to those lines and were turned away
Exactly.
and put over here? I think that it's one of those things where like there's a lot that happened behind the scenes that obviously we'll never be privy to, and now the line unfortunately is gone. There's a lot of authors that are no longer writing, but it really makes you think like I think of like Reese Ryan. I'm like, what is she going to do now? Because Desire's closing,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
I know she's always been hybrid. She does write indie as well. And she does have some single titles with like Forever, but I still want to get category from her. So
Right.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens next. Let's get into our books. Dory, let's start with you. What did you pick?
Okay, so the book I picked is Playing with Temptation, and this is a Reese Ryan story.
Because you've been in a Reese Ryan chokehold.
I know. I mean, her foot is on my neck and she doesn't even realize it. So the truth is, I was never really a category reader until I met Bree.
Well, I'm so glad that I
I
brought you to
know.
the bright side.
You influenced me. So I thought of myself as like a contemporary reader. And I feel like I don't know, I almost felt like I didn't really venture out of that because it was comfortable and familiar, I guess.
Mhm.
But at the beginning of the year, I was finishing up grad school and coming off the holiday craziness, and my attention span was zero, and I was kind of in a book rut. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll read category. They're a little bit shorter. Bree's been talking about them. And by this point, Bree and I had become friends. And so I was like, I've always wanted to read Reese Ryan. Everyone says that she's wonderful and they love her. And I just went crazy. Like, I would
Mhm.
say of the books I've read this year, 95% have been Reese.
What a
So
great place to start.
I know. Well, it's so funny because I was like, I'm just going to check her out. I've heard that she's really good. And then I just read
Never stopped.
everything. Yeah, exactly. So she has got me in a chokehold and I couldn't be happier about it. So I chose Playing with Temptation, which is a Pleasure Cove book, which is a series that she has. So this book is about a NFL player and he is in a little bit of trouble. A tape has been released on social media of him basically after a really bad season with his football team. He is just tearing down his teammates, calling them out for all their mistakes, and this tape is released, and of course it's huge drama because the team is now in disarray. No one trusts him, everyone's mad at him, and this is also a contract year for him. He's supposed to re-sign a big contract, and that's now in jeopardy because of the team's morale. So his brother and agent decides that he needs a PR consultant to help shape up his image.
Oh, I love
And
this.
yes. And who is that consultant, you ask? It is his ex girlfriend and the mother of
Oh.
his child.
Oh,
Oh.
snap. I didn't see second
Yes.
chance romance coming.
Yes, this is a sports romance. This is a second chance romance, and I love it. And what I love about category is, they get right to the story. Like,
Right to
there is
it.
no dilly dallying. They get right to it. So the first chapter of the book is literally him having dinner with his brother, and he walks he walks in, and there is his ex. And he's like, "Oh, hell no.
Oh, I
Like,
love
this
it.
is
Yes.
not, I am not doing this." And she broke up with him. So he is in his feelings about it. He is really hard on her and really mad at her still all these years later. And you realize that he's really upset because he's still in love with her, right?
Yes.
So the book is really about how they navigate this scandal together and how they find their way back to each other after all these years apart. It's been 7 years since they broke up. So they've both grown and changed a lot and they've been through a lot. And as with everything I've read by Reese Ryan, it was truly a delight. I will go back and read the rest of the series. And yeah, I love a sports romance. I'm a sucker for a sports romance, so this was perfect for me. And I love a second chance romance too. So this was
Yeah.
so wonderful.
So many tropes like second chance, sports,
Yes.
them having to work together leads into like close force proximity.
Oh, there is lots
a
of forced
lot.
proximity. Yes. I
A
loved it.
project. I love a
Mhm.
project. Like, we gotta
Mhm.
fix you.
Yep. I know,
Love it.
kind of like a reformed bad boy situation a little bit. I mean, just every time a new trope popped up, I'm like clapping my hands. I'm so excited. I'm like, keep them
Yes.
coming, Reese, bring them on. But yeah, I would highly recommend this. And when I got it, it still might be. It was $1.99 on you could buy it on Amazon Kindle. So
Okay.
check it out. Reese, if you're listening, I love you. Thank you for saving my reading this year.
But thank you, Reese Ryan, for showing up yet again. Yes.
She kills it every time. She kills it every time.
She's so good. Okay, Nadia, what did you read?
So I was going through my Libby app, like God bless my Libby app, because
Yes.
they really have a lot to offer. So I'm absolutely in my billionaire phase, right? If it has a billionaire in it, I will read it. Like that.
Okay. I'm not mad at it at all.
That is definitely my thing. So I came across this book called Tempting the Billionaire by Niobia Bryant. And
Yes.
so basically, you have this self made billionaire named Chance, and he is suing his ex fiance for her parts in the breakup of their $1 million wedding. And so he hires this lawyer named Nosy, and they are having to work together on this case. And there's a lot of attraction going on. They kind of run it within the same circles, and it's in the Dominican Republic. And so it's, when I say there's so many like close proximity, like new love, workplace romance, it's great. It is great. I really enjoyed I think I just fell in love with the premise of the book. Automatically, as soon as I saw the cover, I'm just like, yep, yep, absolutely. Um, it does uh, jump into the story right away, and it's a very, it's not very long. It's maybe like 300 pages, but I loved how it was very detailed with every single page. The conversations were very mature. They really didn't, play around with any small talk. They just kind of got right to it, right? But the one thing that was sort of hindering the story, Nosy, she's an attorney, and she said, I will never, get involved with a client. And Chance walks in, and she's instantly attracted to him. And she's just like, well,
There goes that.
rule goes out the window. And so, I love that. I love that instant attraction. Like you're attracted, but you're just like, this goes against everything I believe in. But I love that kind of trope. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for my first Kimani romance. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I definitely look forward to more like that.
Yes. Yes. And Niobia is another Desire author that I hope we see more titles from her pop up somewhere
Mhm.
else. Please, Niobia, if you ever listen to this, please do. Angela, what did you read?
Okay, first of all, I am fangirling of Nadia and Dory. Oh my goodness, I am totally a fan. You know how you have like some authors where it was like if they write it, I'm reading it or what have you.
Yes.
So yeah, and when Dory was talking, I was super duper fangirling over Reese Ryan. I am totally a Reese Ryan fan. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, I have read so many of Reese Ryan books, just amazing. But I actually, y'all probably can guess who I read, but I actually read Jacquelin Thomas. Oh my goodness, I loved her Kimani books. And the funny thing about it is that she had one of the series that she had was the Alexanders of Beverly Hill, and I read the entire series, but I realized that I didn't read book 2. I was like, oh my goodness. So
Oh,
I
girl, how do you
pulled book
skip the
2
second book?
out of the 5. Right, out of the 5. I'm like, how did I miss book 2? I've read all the books in it or what have you. So I went back and grabbed that one, and it was amazing. Basically, the story is one of the daughters, and they have what they have the Alexander DePaul Hotel, and they actually inherited this hotel where in book one, their father finds out that the owner of this estate is really his dad, if that makes sense. And he leaves them, this huge estate or what have you. So of course, they have children. So each one of the children gets their own story. So this is Sage's story. And Sage is getting ready to be 30, and she's single, but she kind of wants to get married. She wants to have a family or what have you. And so there is this he is this investigative reporter, and so he writes these stories for this newspaper, but his identity is constant. Like, he writes under a pen name, but just his writing gets under her skin, right? So he's working on this piece about the homeless people that's in the LA area, all of this good stuff or what have you. And so he also ties it to, people, families of wealth and all this stuff or what have you. So he goes undercover as a homeless person. And
Oh my gosh.
guess who? Guess who Sage run into, right? She runs into him. And okay, let me just tell you that the chemistry was definitely, there or what have you. So she gives him a job and, all this good stuff, but she starts catching feelings, and he starts catching feelings for her too. But he's like, oh my goodness, I'm really feeling her, but I don't know if it's going to be the same when she finds out that I have really been lying to her, because I'm really this investigative reporter doing this story, or what have you. And so anyway, it was just really, really good. I enjoyed reading it, and it actually brought me back into that whole Alexanders of Beverly Hills, because like I said, the whole series is just amazing. But I was like, wow, how did I miss book 2, her story, or what have you? But I just really, really enjoyed it.
That sounds delightful.
I know.
I'm so here for that.
I love an undercover. Okay.
Yes, yes.
too.
Look, and it's like the plot thickens, because it's like, I was like, man, when she finds out who he really is,
Right.
especially when they was catching feelings, for each other, or what have you, was just amazing. So yeah.
Love it. I read a Brenda Jackson, which Miss Brenda had, I believe, the very first book in the Kimani line. So, it's Miss Brenda.
They
I
came out
read
swinging. I love
Yes.
that.
I read Bachelor Undone, and it's actually the third book in her Bachelors in Demand series. I was like, you know what? It's June. I wanted something beachy, and this literally has the beach on the cover. So I was like, that's what we're going with. Thank you, Miss Brenda, back in the day. This is the romance between Darcy and York, and they hate each other. Okay. So Darcy is she goes to Jamaica from New York. She's a city planner, and when she gets there, she's just wanting to chill out, let loose, have a good time, and potentially, meet the man of her fantasies. And she does, but it's York. And again, they already know each other. She can't stand him. She's so mean to him. It's so funny. But she finds herself he's an ex-cop, still does kind of some security stuff on the side. And he's there investigating, because they're shooting a movie, and there's word on the street is somebody on the inside is smuggling footage off the set, doing some shisty stuff, and he's trying to figure out who it is and why. And then Darcy gets there. This guy on the set kind of really takes to her and wants to show her around. She finds herself caught up in some mess that she had no idea she was going to be part of. And at first she's like, you're just a hater. You don't want to see me out with this other guy. Leave me alone, mind your business, do your thing. He has nothing to do with it. I'm not caught up in anything. And he's like, you just really need to be careful, because something shady is going on here, kind of thing. And so it's them, it's enemies to lovers. And what I think she just brilliantly did is if they would have never met in Jamaica, they probably would have continued to hate each other. But it's almost like you have to be taken out of your comfort zone. I feel for them to have realized you're not so bad. And when they fall, they fall really hard, and it's like all of a sudden, like, just seeing that person in a different light, like, you're not as bad of a person as I thought you was, but it was still really funny to see Darcy be so tough on him. She's like, Miss Brenda, like, grew up with like tons of male cousins, so I feel like a lot of her heroines had like a bunch of brothers or male cousins as well, and that kind of like toughens them up a little bit. So she does not take it easy on York, and I loved their dynamic. And of course, like, he's just totally smitten with her, which is so cute to see, like, this big tough security guy. So yeah, that's the third book in the series. Like y'all who kind of just jumped in, I'm like, yeah, I need to go read the previous two, and I did read mine off of Libby. A lot of Miss Brenda's stuff is available on audio, so I listened to it on audio. It's like 5 hours, but I finished it in like 2 because the narration's just so easy to follow, and I was so immersed. I was like, I'm not doing anything until I finish this book. So I loved it. So y'all, thank you guys for reading with me this month. This was amazing.
This was so fun.
It's
Thank
so
you
fun.
for introducing me to Kimani.
Yes, thank
Yay.
you.
Y'all have to like hit me up and be like, girl, this is what I'm reading next. Dory, let's start with you. Tell us where everybody can keep up with you online, and you better plug all the feels too.
You can follow me on Instagram at Dory Benford. You can follow me on Twitter at All the Feels Pod. I have a Hallmark podcast. We run during the holidays, watching all of the Hallmark holiday movies. But we also released an episode last week. So yes, we usually take a very long hiatus. But yeah, we are back in the game a little bit, dipping a toe in. So please check us out. This is going to drive me crazy, so I have to correct myself. I told you that the word sepia was pronounced sepia, and it is driving me crazy. It's been driving me crazy the past hour. It's sepia. So little
Sepia.
grammar check for myself. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Dee.
Sepia.
Thank you.
I had to, I couldn't let the grammar go. Couldn't let it go.
Because somebody would have came for me.
Somebody would have come for us, and I'm not having that.
Nadia, where can everybody keep up with you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Nadia's Bookish World 86. And I also have a YouTube channel by the same name. So you can catch me, posting all the books, all the TV recs, all the things.
And Angela?
Yes. Oh, and I want to make a correction. Look, I got so excited talking about the book. I don't know if I gave you guys the title, but it's called 5-Star Temptation. And it's the Alexanders of Beverly Hills series, and it's book 2. So I wanted to put that out there. So in case people are looking for it, they have the title of it. You can follow me on social media. I am on Instagram and Facebook as Angela Anderson Presents. I am also on TikTok as Angela Anderson. And I have a YouTube channel, Angela Anderson's YouTube channel. I have a literary cafe, which is a 30-minute author interview show, as well as a literary tea, which is an hour-long book discussion, is where you can follow me. You can find me on my website at angelaandersonpresents.com.
You all are awesome. I appreciate this so much. And just, yeah, thank you for reading Kimani with me. You all will have to come back. I will find a reason to gather you all up again, and we'll do this again.
Absolutely. Thank
Absolutely.
you for having
This
us.
was so fun.
Yes.